You probably have a box of table salt in your kitchen right now. It costs about $2, and there's a specific way to use it that pest control companies genuinely do not want you to know about. Because once you do, you stop calling them. Here's what this video is about. A two-ingredient combination using plain salt that kills rodents at the biology level, not the trap level. Most people assume you need poison, snap traps, or a monthly service contract. You don't. But before I show you the mechanism, I need to tell you something about salt that almost every rodent video gets completely backwards. Because if you skip this part, nothing else in this video will make sense. Salt does not repel rodents. I know that sounds obvious once you hear it, but most people treat it like it should. The opposite is true. Rodents are actively attracted to salty food. They'll nibble pet food, crumbs, salty snacks, even spicy leftovers. Sprinkling plain salt on a threshold does literally nothing except season the floor. So why does salt matter at all? Because when you combine it with corn gluten meal, a dry, food-safe byproduct you can find at garden centers for almost nothing, something happens at the biology level that changes everything. The corn gluten meal mixed with sodium chloride renders the rodent's stomach and intestine unable to signal to the brain that it's thirsty. The animal dehydrates over 2 to 5 days and essentially falls asleep. That's not a trap. That's not a poison. That's a mechanism that works on the rodent's own physiology. And here's the part that makes this combination genuinely different from anything else on the market. I'll get to that in a second. But first, let's talk about the one biological fact about rodents that almost no one in this space ever explains. And it's the entire reason this two-ingredient bait works on rodents and is completely harmless to your dog, your cat, your kids, and any wildlife that wanders through. Rodents cannot vomit. That's it. That's the whole thing. Physiologically, they have a powerful barrier between the stomach and the esophagus, and they simply don't have enough esophageal muscle strength to force anything back up. Every other mammal you care about, dogs, cats, humans, birds, can expel this mixture without any issue. But a rodent that eats it is stuck with it. The corn gluten and salt combination forms a thick plug that physically obstructs the airway, leading to suffocation. That mechanism doesn't occur in any animal that can produce an emetic reflex, so what you're working with is a food-safe two-ingredient bait that is selectively lethal to rodents and harmless to everything else in your home. That's why this works. That's why it doesn't get mainstream attention. And that brings me to the placement problem, which is where most people completely blow it. Rats and mice are not the same animal. They don't think the same way. And if you treat them like they do, your bait will sit untouched for weeks. Rats are neophobic, meaning they're genuinely afraid of new things. A new object placed in a rat's environment, even a familiar food in an unfamiliar container, can cause the rat to avoid it entirely for days or even weeks. Rats that have survived a poisoning operation become even more neophobic than rats that were never exposed. Mice work the exact opposite way. Most mice are naturally curious and will approach new traps and new bait stations quickly. This is why the same bait in the same spot will keep catching mice, but stop working on rats entirely. Knowing which rodent you're dealing with isn't just trivia, it determines your entire strategy. For rats, the bait has to go exactly where they're already traveling, in a station that's been sitting undisturbed long enough to stop feeling new. For mice, placement matters less than freshness and accessibility. Get this wrong and you're not losing to the rodent. You're losing to your own setup. Now here's something that changes how you read your entire home. Mice urinate constantly as they walk. We're talking anywhere from hundreds to thousands of microdroplets per day. The amino acids in that urine fluoresce under UV light, meaning a $15 black light flashlight will reveal the exact travel paths rodents are using through your walls, your kitchen, and your cabinets, long before you ever see a dropping or a gnaw mark. Mice use these urine trails to navigate, locate food, and communicate social status to other mice in the colony. That hidden highway system is how you find exactly where to place your bait for maximum effectiveness. Run a UV light along your baseboards tonight, and you'll see things that will genuinely surprise you. And once you see it, the next question you'll have is how to erase it, which I'll come back to, because this is the step that keeps infestations from coming back. Before I get there, I want to address the financial side of this because it's the reason you've never heard any of this before. The rodenticides market was valued at 5.8 billion US dollars in 2024 and is projected to reach 7.7 billion US dollars by 2029. Rodent control has become one of the fastest growing revenue segments for pest control companies. A food-safe, two-ingredient bait you can make for under $2 and place yourself eliminates the recurring service call entirely. That's the financial reason this method doesn't get mainstream attention. The industry isn't built around solving your problem permanently. It's built around managing it indefinitely. Most people trap or poison the rodents they can see and call it done. But rodenticides are specifically designed to take 4 to 5 days to take effect, long enough that the rodent feeds multiple times before feeling ill, so it never associates the bait with sickness. If it feels ill too quickly, it develops bait shyness and will avoid that food for the rest of its life. Here's the thing most people miss. The rodents you see are scouts. They're not the colony. Eliminating scouts without eliminating the colony's food access signal just triggers replacement scouts. The goal isn't to kill, it's to make your home unreadable as a food source. That's a completely different objective, and it changes everything about how you approach this. Here's something from a controlled experiment that makes that even clearer. Rats in studies lost over 10% of their body weight over 2 days rather than feed from an identical but different feeding tray from the one they were used to. Same food, same size tray, different physical location, and the rats starved themselves instead of switching. That level of behavioral rigidity means bait placement location matters just as much as bait composition. If you move a bait station even a few inches from where it was originally placed, a rat treats it as a completely new object and starts the avoidance cycle all over again. The station has to go where the rats are already traveling, not where you want them to go, where they already are. Now, one more thing before the entry point issue, and this one will probably make you angry if you've ever bought foam gap filler from a hardware store. Foam alone is not a durable mouse-proofing material. Mice can gnaw or push through it in minutes. The pest control aisle literally sells foam gap filler right next to rodent traps, which creates a perfect cycle. The foam gets chewed through, the infestation continues, and you buy more traps. Steel wool works as a short-term fix, but rusts out. The only permanent barrier materials are stainless steel mesh, copper mesh packed tightly into gaps, or hard sealants over metal. And here's why this matters so much. A house mouse can squeeze through an opening the size of a dime, about a 1/4 inch in diameter. Their skull is the widest part of their body, and if the skull fits, the rest follows. Rats need roughly the size of a quarter. Once a mouse finds a good entry point, it remembers it and leaves scent trails that guide other mice to the exact same spot. Blocking the bait without sealing the entry is why infestations keep returning even after successful kills. And that brings us back to the urine trail, and the last thing almost nobody in this space ever talks about. Research found that dominant male mice vigorously mark their entire territory with urine, while subordinate males typically void only in 2 to 4 small pools in corners. The strongest, most reproductively active male in the colony is creating the most expansive scent map, recruiting others and establishing claim to your kitchen. Standard cleaning products don't remove that signal. The pheromone is protein-based. The only thing that actually erases it is an enzymatic cleaner that breaks down the protein in rodent urine. Without that step, you can kill every mouse in the building, and the scent trail will keep drawing new ones back to the same locations. That's the step that makes everything else permanent. So here's where we landed. Salt doesn't repel rodents. It's half of a 2-ingredient kill mechanism that works because rodents can't vomit. Rats and mice require completely different placement strategies because their psychology is opposite. Your UV flashlight shows you the exact travel map you need. Foam doesn't seal entry points. And killing the visible rodents without erasing the urine trail is why most people stay stuck in the same cycle indefinitely. At the start of this video, You had a box of salt and a rodent problem. Now you have the biology, the placement logic, and the cleaning step that the recurring service model depends on you never figuring out.